Today I finally get to introduce the Kickr 2 or the KICKR16 to the family of smart trainers I've got here in the pain cave. I first talked about the KICKR16 back in July last year when Team Sky were using one of them over at the Tour de France for their warm-ups. I also saw them and they were released and available over at Eurobike. So Wahoo did nail the marketing and availability straight away there, which was really good to see. So it's been a while coming since I've got one of these, but let's go through my version of unboxing, throwing parts everywhere, getting the bike on and having a chat about it. Let's get this. Bit different to the other Kickr box. Actually, the other Kickr box had a hinge to it. This one has just the standard opening at the top. Okay, so we have manuals and power cables. You know what we do with the manuals. Disc brake protector there. We have the American power cable. Now here's a first, straight from the US. I've got an American power cable. We're going to have to deal with that. We have a important information document, and we have a cadence sensor, which is both Bluetooth Smart and ANT+. Very handy. Okay, in the box itself is the beast. I think I'll tip this upside down to get it out. As I said, the other box had a bit of a hinge to it, which was kind of cool. This is just a standard box. And it was kind of more user-friendly doing it that way. Ah, okay, cool. So what we've got is the standard power brick here. Again, it's the easiest parts that I get caught up on every time. There we go. Right. Okay, so a standard IEC connector on here, so I can use any of the power cables I've got, so that's not a problem. Okay, comparing the power pack to the old Kickr. So just double checking the power packs from the original Kickr to the new Kickr. They are both 12 volts, 5 amps output. Cool, so they are interchangeable. Oh yeah, okay. I was skeptical about how good the handle actually was, but I'm sold straight away. That handle, you can see system balanced and you can cart this thing around. Let me show you the difference between the old one, trying to cart the old one around. Original Kickr, new Kickr. Okay, picking up the old Kickr with the handle, the thing just spins straight around. You can see that. It's a two-handed job. Every time it's kind of awkward, even though it does have a handle. So the new one with the handle, it's actually centered right, and you can just pick up and go to the shops. Okay, so the handle gets a thumbs up from me straight away. Another win here when you buy a Kickr is the supplied cassette. So you don't have to worry about getting another cassette if you're compatible with this. This is an 1126 entry-level SRAM, which is good enough for indoor work. So the next step is to get the feet adjusted out and this set up for the correct height for my road bike. I'll do the height adjustment for the feet while I'm here to make life easy. And these do ship with 650C road. We have to change that up, so let's get that done now. And just to be sure, let's check the cassette hub body. There's absolutely no movement at all in there. Everything's tight on. Okay, we're good. So now I've got both side by side, the new and the old Kickr. Let's go through just a few of the differences with both systems. Before I mentioned the handle, so new handle, great positioning on the new one. The old one was down here and very unbalanced. We have some LED status lights in here. So we know what's connected with the new one with either Bluetooth or ANT, so we know when the system's on and working. Over here, there's no status lights whatsoever. The power for the new one is connected straight out the back. Really, really easy to get to. The old one is under the bottom here. They did update it with a bit of a piggy tail, which was okay, but still a bit of a pain. Probably the largest difference between the two is how they measure power. The old Kickr, if you can see here this black disc on the Kickr1, that's the power meter. So that's very delicate, you've got to be very careful with that, and it's connected to the brake, and there's strain gauges connected in there. And that's not the case on the Kickr2. There's no strain gauges on this unit. The power is estimated from the speed of the flywheel and the resistance supplied by the brake. So I'm really keen to put this to the test. A subtle change on the new Kickr is also the lower profile to the plastic. You can see this is flush here with that disc. But on the original Kickr, it sticks out a little bit. You can see it's not quite flush. And there are a few reports of people running 11 speed with their rear derailleur hitting close. Let's have a quick look at the two differences now with my bike. My bike isn't suffering from the same problem as others, but it is really, really close. Here, you can just touch the edge there. Now let's compare that to the new one. You can see here there's plenty of room to move between the unit and the rear derailleur. That's good. Okay, the system seems to be pulling less than 1 watt on standby. That's not too bad at all. So our lights are happily flashing away while ANT is always solid and on, and Bluetooth is seeking a host. Get it up in time to ride. I'll be doing my standard tests of steady state intervals plus those 10-second sprints, collecting data from multiple sources to grab the response time from the Kickr2, Kickr16, Kickr, whatever we call it. So let me run you through the setup for the moment. The Garmin 820 is going to be used to collect power from the pedals themselves, the PowerTap P1s. I have the Garmin 800 over here, paired over ANT Plus to the Kickr16, and I'll have Zwift loaded up here, collecting data from the stages once it wakes up again. There we go. So 3 sources of data that I'll overlay together, and we'll check out how it goes for steady state and the sprints. So I've got the initial steady state tests out of the way and a few ramp ups to about 400 plus watts. All looks pretty good, but we'll look at the data in a minute. Now to see how quickly this thing changes resistance based on the gradient changes on Zwift. Right now we're on the London course, and here's the stairs coming out of the subway here. So as soon as I hit that, I should get resistance kicking in. Let's see how quickly it kicks in. That's really hard to quantify, but I can tell you the resistance kicked in almost instantly as I hit the ramp and kicked out as soon as it flattened up. So what they've been saying about the responsiveness of the new Kickr, yep, okay, I'll pay that. So now I'll be honest, the next intervals I dread. 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, with the first one being all out, everything I've got. And the next subsequent ones are never as good because 10 seconds isn't really enough to recover your sprint power. but it's a really good test of the units in responsiveness and reaction time. First session complete on the Kickr16 and it held up quite well. Side note on how much it bounces around in this room. This is a carpeted floor with another carpet layer put on top. So over 1,000 watts, I expect things to jump around. I'm okay with that. If the trainer breaks, if the bike breaks, if I break, great, it's going to make some great footage, but it also makes sure that these systems will hold up in every environment. Not everyone's going to have a solid concrete floor. If you do have a solid concrete floor though, you will have issues with noise, so you'll have to do a bit of sound suppressant such as carpet walls or carpet floor if you want to keep the neighbours happy at night. Speaking of sound, here's my sound comparison test between the new Kickr and the old. So the unit being quieter than the original was one of the main selling points. Is it quieter? By ear, I couldn't tell the difference. But the data says it is, but it's still got that customary whine to it. It's definitely no Neo and no Drivo. It's down the tree a little bit further. It's not too obnoxious, but it's not a silent trainer. So is it quieter? Yes. Is it a quiet trainer? No. Okay, let's have a look at the data and how responsive this thing actually is. Just for interest's sake, here's the data before the spin down. And you can see the kick is reading a little high. I then do the spin down just here and everything comes more into line, which is looking good. Okay, into the first 10-minute steady state interval here at 300 watts. Now, this is with power smoothing on from erg mode on the Kickr 2. So you can see the Kickr 2 here is reporting 300 watts. Whether you're doing 300 watts or not, it doesn't matter. In this mode, in erg mode using the WAHOO Fitness app, it will say 300 watts and just stay there. The power tap pedals, pretty much on song all the way through, and the stages, surprise, surprise, is reading a little low. All systems normal there for today. Into the second interval, we have a slight drop from 2 data channels here. Let's ignore that for now and look at the overall. Again, the erg mode is saying 300 watts and it flatlines from the Kickr. But par for par, it's all looking pretty good from the power tap pedals, and the stages sort of comes into line a little there. But let's ignore the stages for now. Now, I then switch to power smoothing off in erg mode, which is a new feature of the new firmware. You can see what happens here. So this power spike here is me doing an aborted start for that 10-minute session, but you can see the power's tracked really well and really closely through here. Okay, the red line, let's ignore the stages. The stages had better things to do than report accurate power. But what you can see here is the Kickr is tracking super, super closely with the power tap pedals. Now this is erg mode with power smoothing off. Really, really good. Super impressed with that. And the averages was really close. So steady state gets a thumbs up from me. Now, the sprints. These were 3 all-out sprints, super close together to see the kick-in response time and the drop-off response time. These are looking good. These are looking really good. So here's my JRA just riding along, 40 watts, 43 watts, sub 50 watts. That's all pretty stock standard there. Let's zoom in a little harder here. Okay, so I kick in the sprint here, pow. Now, we're seeing the Kickr actually jump in first. Pretty happy with that. Power tap pedals and stages, probably a second or so later, but that's very, very close. The next one, Closer again. These are within a few seconds of each other. And the last ones track really, really well, even up to the peak power there. So stages are reporting 1124, the Kickr's on 1053, and the power tap pedals is on 1078. So super close, super responsive, and you'll have no issues whatsoever racing online in Zwift, kicking into a sprint, closing wheels, and everything there. The drop-off's a little different on the both, but it's the response time. When you press the pedals, you want that response time there. Thumbs up from me. And at the end here, I did some one-legged intervals there, so there's a bit of power separation there. But again, just riding along. And I think I gave it a bit of a squirt at the end. And again, up to, 400 watts for a few seconds. And the Kickr 2 and power tap pedals tracking really well. The stages was on holiday for a second or so. All very, very happy with that. Okay, my overall impressions, this is a good unit. It's the Kickr 1 that I love. I actually own 4 of those. But it has a few refinements. The handle, it's still a good solid build. The flywheel adds really good inertia. The power response time reporting is really good. And the brake resistance kicks in nicely with Zwift. So that's a thumbs up for me on this one. The sound, it's not as quiet as I'd like. It's definitely no Neo and no Drivo, as I mentioned before. Just a side note, on the old Kickr, there is firmware in development that's going to allow us to switch from strain gauge mode to model mode, the same as the new Kickr, on the old ones, which should, in theory, bring the older Kickr almost up and on par with the new Kickr in regards to accuracy and responsiveness. Stay tuned on that one. So there's my wrap up of the Kickr 2, Kickr 16, Kickr New. Rock solid unit that builds on the legendary status of the Kickr 1 that I do love. Alrighty, we'll leave it there. Comments, questions below, happy to answer. Thanks for watching.